United States, together with our NATO allies and partners, have made extraordinary progress in Afghanistan towards our core goal, which is to defeat al-Qaeda and to deny it a safe haven in Afghanistan. We have also worked very hard, and our soldiers each and every day, not only ours, but those of NATO countries and those of NATO partners, are sacrificing each and every other day in order first to halt and now to reverse the momentum of the Taliban and to start building the capacity of Afghan security forces in order that they ultimately can take responsibility for security. That is our goal. Our goal is not to be there forever. Our goal is to provide the capability for the Afghans to provide for their own security, to be able to deny Afghanistan once and for all as a safe haven to terrorists. At the NATO Summit in Lisbon in 2010, NATO leaders and President Karzai agreed that we would support an Afghan-led transition process. We agreed that the transition would begin in 2011 and lead to the Afghan government having full responsibility for security across the country by the end of 2014. The United States and all of our allies and partners in Afghanistan remain fully committed to this fundamental Lisbon framework. We are committed to executing it together, and we are committed to the principle in together, out together. We came into Afghanistan together, and we will leave Afghanistan together. The transition that we announced in Lisbon is now underway. Nearly 50% of the Afghan population is now living in areas where the Afghan security forces have the lead responsibility for security. In those areas, it is the Afghans that are providing security, and it is NATO and ISAF countries, the partners, that are providing support. As this transition progresses, the role of the NATO forces, of U.S. forces, and of our partner forces will evolve from their lead combat role to a support, advice, and assist role as Afghan forces become more and more responsible for security. During this entire transition period, however, until the end of 2014, NATO's forces, including American forces, will continue to be fully combat ready and will conduct combat operations as needed and as required. Now, when President Obama last June announced that he would host the NATO Summit in this wonderful town this May, he said that at the summit, leaders would define the next phase of transition. And in the lead up to this summit in 80 days, we are engaged in active consultations and close coordination with our ISAF and Afghan partners about how a shift in mission can occur most effectively within the Lisbon framework. Ultimately, any final decision on transition and how that next phase will be implemented will be made by President Obama and his fellow leaders here in Chicago on May 21st. As part of our transition discussions in Chicago, leaders will also discuss how we can support a sustainable and sufficient Afghan national security force for Afghan's future, and how we can further strengthen the NATO-Afghan strategic partnership so that we can ensure that Afghanistan not only is secure until 2014, but beyond 2014. Chicago will therefore represent a critical milestone in our effort in Afghanistan as leaders come together to determine the next phase of transition and the future of how we will support Afghanistan and its security forces in 2015 and beyond. That is the fundamental purpose of what we're seeking to achieve as we come here in 80 days, to recognize the progress that has been made, to chart the future course of the continuing transition that we embarked upon, and to make sure that Afghanistan knows, the world knows, and above all, the Taliban knows that we remain committed in an enduring relationship to Afghanistan.